There are many people who moan and complain about the difficult passages in the gospel or in the Bible. But the real problem is the ones that are very clear, because those are the ones that, touch our conscience and make us nervous and call us to change our lives. And when we read this gospel, there's this temptation, the temptation of the world to say, well, this doesn't sound very Christ-like, knocking at the door, I do not know you. And, where's the charity? Where's the mercy? And, how is this the gospel being locked out? Being told, amen, I say to you, I do not know you. And when we kind of poke at these people, we poke at these thoughts, we realize that there's something strange about them, because the ones who say that, if you, do something that they don't like, they have no mercy. They have no charity. They will react strongly, Everyone else must be nice to me, because otherwise, they will feel my wrath. You scuff my shoes, I will, put a dagger in your back. It's like, wait a second, what's going on here? We've got a double standard, Christ, he must, forgive all of my faults, but, if someone looks at me wrong, they must pay the full price. And we realize there's a lie here. They're not saying, they're not concerned about mercy or charity. The lie is just saying, this isn't important. God isn't important, so why should there be this price? Whereas I'm important, so if you do a fault against that, well, of course you must pay the price. You must, make restitution because I am important. But they do not see the importance in God, so we can make light of it. Like, what does it matter if, I don't take him seriously? It's not that important. What does it matter that these virgins arrived late to the wedding feast? It's just a wedding feast. It's not that important. And that's a big lie. And that's the difference between the wise and the foolish, is the ones who really see the importance of God. In the Legion, there's all these different stories of, the Pope goes somewhere, you're going to go to the Mass of the Pope, and so you camp out all night. Why? Because it's important. You value it. You're willing to pay the price to receive that grace of being in Mass with the Pope. And so what Christ comes and he offers us, he's offering us what is the most important. And he's saying, well, of course there's a price to it, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And so it's kind of like looking at my vocation, When people say, oh, you gave up so much, I'm like, I got the better deal, God is so good. It's so good to be with him. It's so good to serve him. It's so good to love him that, of course, whatever price he asked for, it's worth it. I would have paid more. And we see this is the difference between the wise and the foolish again. The wise, they see the value, so of course they bring fat flask of oil. You never know when the bridegroom is going to come. You got to be prepared. You got to, use all the time, all the resources that are given you for this great event. Whereas the foolish, they didn't think about it. They were wasting their time. They were, they had other concerns, other things that were more important. And, they just tacked this one on at the end. And this is what our life will be. when we have the wisdom, when we seek the wisdom that the first reading talks about, and we look after God, we look to see how good God is and be convinced of it. When he asks something of us, we'll give it because we're ready. We know how good he is and we'll be willing to give it. But if we're foolish, we won't look at his goodness. We'll look at the sacrifice he asked of us, and then we'll hold on to it. And we won't want to give it up because we don't think it will be just. We don't think it'll be worth it. We'll think God is ripping us off. And the humanists that are here that haven't gone on the museum trip, you've made your vows. You've given this great gift to God because you love him. You saw his goodness. And the novices, you're here because he's called you in one way or another. And you're convinced that, it's worth it. But as in the gospel, the bridegroom takes his time. And you might be thinking, where is he? Where is he hiding? And those things that I left behind, maybe I can get them back. Maybe, and as soon as you take your vision away from Christ and his goodness, well, you're going to start looking at the price you paid and all that you gave up, and then there'll be this battle. And if you don't turn back to Christ, well, you're going to lose. And that's how simple it is. And so we have to seek that wisdom. We have to seek, especially when you feel those struggles of the cross or of, that weight. You got to look to Christ and see, he is this good. We know it. We have that faith. But sometimes we need to really work to be convinced of it, to really delve into it, to ask for that wisdom, to seek that wisdom that is spoken of in the first reading, to live the psalm, my soul thirsts for the living God. And then when we do that, and we come and we see how good he is, we look at the cross and we see how much he loves us, we look at the Eucharist, we see how much he gives to us, we read the Gospels, we read the Bible, we see how true it is, how he wants to enlighten us. And we ask him to reveal himself to us that we may know how good he is. And then whatever he asked of us, of course, why wouldn't we? And we'll be like the apostles where the Sanhedrin beat them and they went away rejoicing because they had been considered worthy to suffer something for Christ. Or be like St. Paul, who says that, he lists all of the great things, all of his great qualities of being a Pharisee, the most zealous of all the Jews, faithful to the law, and all of his qualities. And he says all of that was refuge, worth giving it all up, worth getting rid of it all, to know Christ, to lose the world, to have Christ is, and we're still getting the better deal. So as we continue this Mass and as you reflect on this gospel throughout the day, let it be a call to seek to know how good God is. Because only knowing his goodness will we have the courage to follow him and to give everything for him.